Dear Ma, I signed up today. Don't be mad. They said it wouldn't last long. It always starts with a letter, and a handshake, and a lie. They told you it would be quick, that it would be glorious, that you'd be home by Christmas. They said the world needed brave men, and you didn't want to be the one who stayed behind. So you signed your name, not really knowing what it meant. You were 17, or maybe 18, or maybe you lied about your age, like everyone else. You'd never held a rifle, but you'd seen John Wayne do it. You didn't know what artillery was, or a trench, or a bayonet wound, but you would. Very soon. The world was breaking apart. You could feel it in the headlines, in the radio broadcasts, in the way grown-ups stopped talking when you entered the room. Something was coming, and you wanted to be there when it did. They called it the Good War. But that's not what you felt when you hugged your mother for the last time and tried not to cry. When your father gave you that old watch and said nothing, just a hard nod. You boarded a train full of boys just like you. Farmers, mechanics, students, brothers, wide-eyed, trying to act tough. You sang songs and made jokes you didn't really understand. You all thought it was a game. And then you arrived at basic. The first day, they shaved your head and screamed in your face. They tore you down, called you numbers, marched you until you collapsed. No more names, no more comfort, no more Ma. Just discipline, repetition, obedience. You learned how to clean a rifle in the rain with shaking hands, how to put on a gas mask in seconds, how to dig a foxhole and not complain, how to crawl through barbed wire and ignore the blood. You learned what a man looks like when he snaps, and how to keep your own face still when it happens. You learned that people can die in training too. And still, you wrote letters home, pretending it wasn't so bad. The food's not great, but it fills you up. The boys are good. We look out for each other. I'm proud to serve. What you didn't write was the way your hands shook at night, how you missed your mother's cooking, how you cried the first time they played taps for someone you'd spoken to just the day before. Then, the orders came. You were shipping out, overseas. You boarded a ship so large it didn't feel real. The ocean stretched on forever. Some of the boys were sick the whole time. Others just stared at the waves. Nobody talked about what was coming. Nobody had to. You clutched your duffel bag like it was the last piece of home. And in that moment, on that endless creaking boat across the Atlantic, you stopped being a boy. You weren't a soldier yet, but the world had already decided you would be. Cut to black. The sound of waves fades. We hear the soft crinkle of a paper being folded. Tell Dad I'll be fine. Tell Tommy not to touch my comics. Tell Lucy she can have my harmonica. Love you. I'll write again soon. You expected noise, but not this. Not the ringing in your ears from shells bursting somewhere too close. Not the metallic taste of fear in your mouth. Not the sound of men screaming orders you can't understand. Through smoke, through fire, through blood. You're not storming a beach in a war movie. You're stumbling through water, trying not to drown. Your pack is too heavy. Your rifle's jammed with sand. You just saw a man you trained with vanish in red mist. You weren't ready. Nobody was. They told you to stay low. But the machine guns are everywhere. They told you to move forward. But the beach is a graveyard now. Sand kicked up by mortar fire, helmets with no heads beneath them, hands reaching, some for help, some already gone stiff. You fire your weapon without aiming. You duck when there's nowhere to hide. You pray to a god you haven't thought of in years. Your commanding officer goes down, just like that. His voice was yelling 2 seconds ago, Now he's a wet pile of uniform and bone. Someone screams for a medic. Another vomits and curls up, sobbing. You don't even know where the enemy is. They're behind stone bunkers, in windows, in shadows. They've been waiting. They know this terrain. You don't even know the name of this town, only that it ends in Ville and that people once lived here. Now it's rubble. Your boots sink in mud and blood. You think you've been shot, but you're not sure. The adrenaline is burning out your nerves. You just keep running, or crawling, or both. Time shatters. 10 minutes feels like an hour. An hour feels like a lifetime. You lose track of who's alive and who's missing. You step over bodies you don't recognize anymore. You try not to look, but sometimes you do. One of them is still blinking. You try to pull him to safety, but when you grab his arm, it comes off in your hands. You don't scream. You don't have the breath left. You crawl into a shell crater with two others. One's praying, the other's staring. You huddle, waiting for the barrage to stop. It doesn't. Someone tries to light a cigarette with shaking hands, drops it, tries again. Above you, tracer rounds cut the sky. Below you, the earth keeps vomiting steel and fire. You wonder what day it is. You wonder if it's still morning. And just like that, one of the boys beside you is hit. No warning, just a hole in his head. The body slumps sideways like a doll. The other boy doesn't react, just keeps praying. That's when you realize this is not about heroism. This is about surviving. Minute to minute, breath to breath. You run again, almost on instinct. You dive behind a collapsed wall. You fire at shapes you can't see. You reload like they taught you. But your hands are slick, and it takes forever. At some point, you realize you're alone. The noise fades, not because it's over, but because your ears are half deaf now. You can't hear the shouting, just a dull hum, like the ocean's whisper. You sit down, covered in someone else's blood, and stare at nothing. This was your first battle. You made it through. But the war isn't done with you yet. You thought the worst part would be the battles. It's not. It's what happens in between. The endless march, the sleepless nights, the mud that swallows your socks and never lets go, the gnawing ache in your stomach that no ration fixes, the days where nothing explodes, but the silence is louder than shellfire. You walk until your feet blister, then bleed, then callous over. You sleep on frozen ground, in foxholes half filled with water, or not at all. You eat the same hard biscuits until your teeth feel loose. You crap in a trench, in a hole, or in your pants when there's no time. There is always someone missing. One day, it's the guy who used to sing during patrol. The next day, it's the one who kept pictures of his kids in his helmet. No time to mourn. No time to think. Just keep moving, or you're next. The war teaches you new rules. Sleep with your boots on. Never trust a warm building. It's probably booby-trapped. Never take off your jacket. It could be the last one you'll ever have. Never get close to someone too fast. They probably won't be around long. You write letters when you can. Most of them don't make it out. Some of them come back, marked "Return to Sender." That's when you know someone back home didn't make it either. The weather becomes an enemy of its own. In winter, your fingers freeze to your rifle. In the rain, your socks rot on your feet. In the summer, the flies eat everything, including the dead. There are days when the only sound is buzzing. Dozens of bodies, too dangerous to move. Still, you keep walking. Sometimes you sing, just to keep the ghosts away. Sometimes you count your steps. Sometimes you imagine you're walking home. Past the corner store, past the barber shop, past the kitchen window where your mum used to wave at you. You meet civilians now. Not many. Most are gone. The ones that remain don't speak your language, but they don't need to. The look in their eyes is the same: exhausted, hollow, scared. Some help you, some hate you, some just want you to leave. You start measuring time in strange ways. 3 weeks since Johnson died. 2 days since we ate something warm. 1 hour since the shelling stopped. Your memories blur together. Did that ambush happen last week, last month, or was it a dream? Your brain is rewiring itself, shifting into something more primitive. You stop thinking about the war ending. You just focus on tomorrow, and then the next day, and then the one after that. Somehow, this becomes normal. This, walking, digging, sleeping in ruins, waiting for the next order, the next bullet, the next frozen sunrise, this becomes life. But there are moments, small, golden moments that sneak in. A stolen cigarette passed between trembling fingers. A tin of peaches shared in the dark like treasure. A joke so stupid, it makes everyone laugh too hard. A harmonica echoing through the forest, the notes shaky but warm. And for a few minutes, you remember who you used to be. Then the sergeant yells, "Time to move." Again. The war has moved into the cities, and what's left of them. You used to think cities meant civilization, people, safety, shops with bread, a warm stove. But what you find instead is brick dust in your lungs, children sleeping in bathtubs filled with rubble, and silence so deep it feels like it's pressing on your ears. You move through craters that used to be neighborhoods. The buildings lean like drunks. Half of them are shells. The other half are tombs. You pass a school where the chalkboard still says, "Lesson, Geography." There are desks, toys, a drawing on the wall of a smiling sun. There are no children here anymore, just their shadows. The fighting in the city is different, closer, angrier, less clear. Every window might hide a sniper. Every hallway might end with a grenade. You don't walk upright anymore. You crawl. You crouch. You listen with your whole body. You begin to forget what safe felt like. Each room cleared is a roll of the dice. Sometimes you find another soldier. Sometimes you find a corpse. Sometimes you find a family, still inside, still breathing, but barely. You give them your last can of food. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you just walk past. You don't remember. The days blur together. The streets twist like mazes. The maps don't help anymore. The names of the avenues are burned off the signs. You give them your own names now. Sniper Alley, Bloody Bridge, Dead Dog Corner. You sleep in strangers' kitchens, next to their broken dishes and empty photo frames. You take shelter in churches with blown-out windows. You start talking to yourself, quietly at first, then louder. You stop dreaming. But sometimes, when it's too quiet, you remember the face of the last man you shot. He was running. He didn't have a weapon. You told yourself it was the right thing. You had to. But his face keeps coming back. He looked like your cousin. You're not the only one breaking. One of the guys hasn't spoken in 2 days. Just stares, rocking slightly. Another pulled a pistol on his own reflection. You caught one trying to light a cigarette with a stick of dynamite. Some of you laugh, but it's the wrong kind of laughter. Even the animals are different now. Cats with burned fur, dogs with eyes too intelligent, too knowing. They follow you, they watch, and you wonder if they're waiting for you to die so they can eat. One night, a man in your unit starts screaming in his sleep. He won't stop, so someone ties a rag in his mouth and holds him down. The next morning, he's gone. Nobody speaks of it. You just check your ammo and move on. Then, in the middle of this madness, beauty. A woman's voice. Singing. Just once. From a window you can't see. The tune is old, soft, full of sadness. Everyone freezes, no one breathes. When it stops, you realize your eyes are wet. Someone whispers, "She's probably already dead." You don't reply. By the time you leave the city, your boots are soaked with ash. Your eyes won't focus. Your trigger finger twitches even in sleep. You were supposed to liberate this place. You don't know if you did. They say it's almost over. You've heard that before, but this time, the whispers sound different. The officers are more serious. The resistance feels thinner. Enemy lines are folding faster. You're moving through territory once thought impossible. But no one is celebrating, because peace doesn't feel real yet. Not after what you've seen. Not after what you've done. Not after the rumors. The villages look wrong. Deserted, but not destroyed. Smoke still rising from chimneys. Bread left half-eaten on tables. Doors swinging in the wind. You find livestock wandering the roads, but no people, no signs of a fight, no signs of life, only an eerie, practiced silence. Your sergeant tells you to keep your weapon high. Then one day, a message comes through. Hold position. Await further orders. You camp in a valley just outside a town, whose name you can't pronounce. The men are quiet. Everyone is waiting. For what? You're not sure. Some say the war's already over. Some say the worst is yet to come. A few believe both. That night, it starts snowing. You sit beside a man who's been with you since basic. You barely recognize him now. His face is pale. His hands shake. He tells you he had a brother in the Pacific. Haven't heard from him since '43. Then he asks, "Do you think we'll ever get home?" You lie and say yes. At dawn, the orders change. Advance, you move fast. No resistance, not a single bullet. Your boots echo through the stone streets of a village that doesn't even look damaged. But there's something wrong. Too clean. Too still. Then, behind a gate, you find them. Not soldiers, not civilians, not anything you've ever prepared for. Thin figures in striped uniforms, stumbling toward you with hands raised. Not in surrender, but in desperation. They don't speak English. Some don't speak at all. One collapses at your feet, clutching your pant leg like a drowning man. His eyes are sunken. His skin barely clings to his skull. You realize with horror that these are prisoners. Hundreds of them. Thousands. You push deeper into the camp. The smell hits you before anything else. The stench of rot, of decay, of something far worse than death. The buildings are wood shacks, stuffed beyond capacity. Some still have people inside. Others hold only bones. You open a door and recoil. A room full of shoes, another full of glasses, a third filled with human hair. You don't understand. Not at first. Then someone finds the ovens, and suddenly you do. The war changes that day. It's no longer about land, or borders, or politics. It's about what people are capable of. The next day, your unit is ordered to help clear the camp, feed the survivors, carry the bodies, take photographs, record everything. Some men refuse, others obey, barely holding themselves together. You spend the next 48 hours moving between barracks and horror. A medic sobs openly. A radio operator throws up and keeps vomiting. The chaplain stops speaking altogether. That night, you sit alone, staring at your own hands. You wonder what they've touched, what they've done, what they've failed to stop. You look around and realize the war may end soon. But nothing is over. Not really. It didn't end with a bang. No fireworks, no final charge, just a sudden quiet. The shelling stopped. Orders stopped. Marching stopped. And you were still breathing. The war was over. You'd thought about this day 1,000 times. You pictured hugs, flags, a warm bed, a real meal, maybe someone waiting at the station. But the truth is quieter. You come home with fewer friends than you left with. You come home with memories no one wants to hear. You come home different. At first, people clap for you. They smile. They call you a hero. You nod, say thank you. You don't tell them that you can't sleep without hearing gunfire in your dreams. That loud noises make you drop to the floor. That you still carry ration crackers in your coat pocket, just in case. They ask you, what was it like? You lie. You say it was hard. You say it was necessary. You don't say it was madness. That you watched friends die screaming. That you saw a man eat a rat and cry because it tasted like home. That you saw humanity reduced to ash and still had to march through it. You try to work a job, try to go back to school, try to sit still. But there's a part of you that's still crawling through a ruined city, still dragging your buddy out of a crater, still watching smoke rise from chimneys that should never have burned. Time moves on, but your body stays ready. You flinch when someone taps your shoulder. You scan exits when you walk into a room. You count steps. You inventory sounds. You sleep light. Sometimes you walk past people laughing and feel like a ghost. But there are good days too. Days where the sun on your skin feels real, where a child's laughter breaks through the fog, where you hear music and your heart doesn't tighten. You find others like you. You talk around the war, not about it. You learn to live with it. You plant a garden. You fix an old radio. You hold someone's hand and don't pull away. And then, one day, you look in the mirror and don't see the same hollow stare anymore. The war doesn't leave you, but it stops owning you. Years later, you visit a memorial. Black stone. Carved names. You run your hand over letters that once belonged to voices, to laughter, to lives. And you whisper, I remember. That's all you can do. That's everything.